Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munhoz just took place in the co-main event of UFC 265, Lewis versus Gane, and wow, Jose Aldo is back in the mix, and dare I say, Jose Aldo is better than he's ever looked ever before. This might be the best version of Jose Aldo we've ever seen against a dangerous, and tough contender in Pedro Munhoz, who I believe is one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. You're talking about a guy with a first-round TKO over Cody Garbrandt and a first-round submission after rocking Rob Font in the first round as well. He's got a great resume. He's beaten great opponents, and Jose Aldo went back out there and showed us that Aldo has still got it. He's still in the mix in the bantamweight division. He's now put himself in a position for a title elimination bout in the bantamweight division as well. I want to see Jose Aldo versus Rob Font next, but let's talk about the performance in general. 3 rounds to none for Jose Aldo is what I thought the fight should have been scored as. That's what every single judge thought this fight should have been scored as well. The first round was close. Some people said that maybe Munhoz could win the first round. I knew that Munhoz had outlanded Aldo by a little bit with those little inside leg kicks, but I thought Aldo's landed the way bigger shots here. Much more bigger shots than Pedro Munhoz as well. Pedro Munhoz would land a couple of good hooks, but rarely ever did he pop the head back of Aldo or hurt Aldo to the body or land a really good leg kick that took Aldo off his feet. I mean, Jose Aldo, in the first round, little bit out-volumed, but got the job done on better strikes. Round 2 really started to turn it around, landing great combinations, chopping at the legs himself. Really did a great job of checking the leg kicks of Pedro Munhoz. Munhoz went out there in the first and second round and had the idea to go out there and just calf kick Jose Aldo. But Aldo showed a real good adeptness at just checking those kicks. Over and over and over again, every single time Pedro Munhoz went to the outside leg, Aldo just checked the kick, and it made Munhoz get nothing from throwing them other than pain in his own shin, and he stopped throwing the calf kicks, and eventually Jose Aldo started having way more success with the hands. And those body shots, man, it's like watching a Brazilian Canelo out there. The body shots that Aldo was finding on Munhoz were just, it would be a jab dinner, wink wink, 2 of them straight to the body, both sides. It's just brutal to watch Aldo chew up the body of Pedro Munhoz. Great jabs to the body, great straight right hands to the body as well from range. He really took advantage of the 5-inch reach advantage that he had. He is a big bantamweight as well, by the way, so Munhoz did try and get him to the ground, tried to get some double underhooks, but Aldo was just a little bit too strong, used the clinch, made his way back to the center of the cage, looked to land some shots off the break from the clinch as well, and Jose Aldo gets it done, man. Even in the 3rd round. Let's talk about the 3rd round, because I'll tell you this. I predicted Aldo to win. I thought Aldo was going to win the first 2 rounds and then barely survive the 3rd while gassing out because Munhoz would eventually overtake him and start to get the pressure going. I thought Aldo would win 29-28 based on the first 2 rounds and start to really badly fade in the 3rd. Jose Aldo, that might be the best 3rd round he's ever had. 47 significant strikes out of 68. 69% accuracy on Pedro Munhoz in that 3rd round. Munhoz had nothing for him in the 3rd. And Munhoz is a guy who builds himself into fights. He's the guy who goes out there, chops you down like he did against Jimmy Rivera, and eventually takes over as the fight goes on. And Aldo is winning the 3rd round against him, showing great cardio, great composure. He doesn't overthrow shots anymore. He only throws when he needs to. He kept a good accuracy rating throughout the entire fight. A couple of times in the first 2 rounds, he would just parry with a couple of jabs and not really want to land them, so that's going to skewer the accuracy a little bit. But even still, Aldo was very, very effective. Went to the body well, which stops the forward pressure of Pedro Munhoz. I said this as well in my prediction video. I said Aldo was going to check the leg kicks, throw body shots, and stick with the jab. And it worked out for Aldo, man. He stung Pedro Munhoz in the face many a time. Even rocked Munhoz at one point. And let me say this as well, even in the 3rd round. Just when you thought Aldo was, gonna show some sign of humanity, he lands 5-punch combinations over and over and over again on Pedro Munhoz. Munhoz would throw 1 punch and it would be it would just be a speed never seen before by Aldo with the punches that he was landing. He was winging them out there, taking a little bit of heat off of his shots, focusing on speed and timing, and he was just way faster than Pedro Munhoz. Stung him in the face with a jab multiple times. There was one moment in the fight where he landed a triple jab on Pedro Munhoz. It shows how good Yan is, Petr Yan, but man, in a 3-rounder, maybe Aldo could beat Petr Yan. And that is a real thing that we have to take into consideration. I know that out of all of the rounds that Gane and Aldo had, Gane won two rounds to one in the first 3 rounds. But that's when Aldo knows that there's a round 4 and 5 coming. If Aldo knows that he's got 3 rounds to work, he is one of the best guys ever, and it shows how good Gane is. But Aldo's still in the mix, man. I just want to see him go 5 rounds, so I think his next fight should be in the main event of a fight night in December. Last card of the year, Jose Aldo versus Rob Font. I know Aldo doesn't like going 5 rounds, and he almost specifically books himself 3-round bouts. This one was offered as a 5-rounder. He said no, because normally they do the feature fight in the co-main as 5 rounds now in a pay-per-view. But I want to see Aldo do 5 rounds, because he'll go to a decision. I don't think he's going to be finishing these bantamweights, especially at the top of the division. They're too good at staying alive. I just really want to see Aldo go 5 rounds with a guy like Rob Font. I think he's got a chance to win. I think he's got a chance to get his hands back on a title shot in the bantamweight division. Aldo has still got it, man. Crazy to think, but he has still got it in the bag. Jose Aldo looked amazing, man. The jab was on point. Dealt with pressure really well. It looked like he was having fun out there. And he's still got it. Young in his career, 34 years of age. Pedro Munhoz is the same age. Aldo could be fighting for a belt by mid next year, and I think he's got a chance. Like, only thing that makes me worry is the 5 rounds. That's the only thing that makes me worry. But the body shots, the jabs, the right hands, the leg kicks of his own. If he threw more leg kicks of his own, that would be way more devastating. I think that would really add to his game. The leg kicks that he did throw against Pedro Munhoz took Munhoz off of his feet a couple of times. So, man, Aldo looked amazing out there. I'm really happy for him as well, because if Aldo went out there and lost, I'd feel really bad. There's been like a... I feel like this weekend's card has brought out the best in the MMA community, because I feel like Luke and Aldo are getting a lot of praise, because you really start to realise with the shit cards that we have on, like Hall versus Strickland, which ended up being amazing, don't get me wrong, but in terms of talent on the card in the first place, it was not a good card to look at, leading up to the fight anyway. To see Aldo in there still doing it, Vicente Luque getting a submission over Chiesa, I mean, I think we're really starting to value the veterans of the game that are still doing things that they shouldn't be able to do. 34 years of age, longer than a decade in the game by far. I think it's coming up to a decade and a half now in terms of MMA experience. Still doing it, man. Refused to be put in a clinch, refused any situation where he was on his back. Munhoz just couldn't pressure enough. Munhoz had some moments where he would land some inside leg kicks and maybe a couple of calf kicks as well. But listen to this. I don't feel like Munhoz really landed that many shots on Aldo. He might have landed some decent ones here and there with some hooks. But those leg kicks, I felt like all were checked by Aldo. And I think that needs to not count as a significant strike, because otherwise, why are you checking them? If the guy's still getting points for just going shin on shin to you, I think shin on shin, especially when the guy clearly looks like he checked the kick, should just count as neutral. Nothing happens. He didn't do any damage to Aldo's leg because he's checking it. Fair play if Aldo starts limping around, even though he's checking the kick. Maybe then you can give some damage points for it, but Aldo had no problem with the leg whatsoever. Started chopping back on Pedro Munhoz and just did what Aldo does. Those combination punches he was landing, the knee he landed in the first round that he was timing on Pedro Munhoz. Munhoz kept coming in, trying to lower his level and trying to fire shots over the top of the jabs of Jose Aldo. Aldo was timing them in, the knee perfectly every time. Landed a couple of good ones of those in the first round, and then just stuck to the jab and the combinations in the second and third. The body shots, man. I'd say best body shots in MMA. I know Miocic beat DC with him in a championship fight, but Aldo might have the best looking body shots in the whole of MMA. I just want to see him go 5 rounds. That's all I have in the back of my mind. No matter what I say about Aldo in this performance, I just need to see 5 rounds. I'm glad that he's getting some respect that he deserves in the game. Still doing it. Still at the top of the division. But man, great performance by Aldo. Really, really good performance. 69% accuracy in the third round. He was on fire in that third round. And that was good to see as well, because the first round was close. And I thought Aldo won it clearly, but still, Aldo in his mind is not out there in a third round like Casey fucking Kenny, thinking that he's up 2 rounds and taking a third round off and letting the guy win. That would be terrible. And maybe it could have resulted in a robbery, even though they all ended up giving him 30-27 anyway. Aldo looked great, man, and I'm glad that he pushed it in the third. He did not wait, and he did not let Pedro Munhoz just win the third round for the sake of it. He kept momentum, and I think that works for Aldo. If you can keep momentum, the guy can't gas you out in a fight. It's just not how it works. If they're the guy going backwards and they're the guy taking damage in a fight, they can't overwhelm you. They can't get on you. They can't just walk through your shots, because there are shots there to land on them and hurt them to the body. And when Pedro Munhoz is walking forwards, he is not setting his stance in any way. He's completely open to the body. And that's what Aldo did. The reach advantage is massive. And let's just say it, he is a bit of a weight bully. I know I chucked that word around quite a bit, but man, Jose Aldo is... I don't know how he makes bantamweight. I thought Pedro Munhoz wasn't even that small of a bantamweight. Aldo is way bigger than him. 5 inches of reach advantage as well. But, you know, Aldo's now on a 2-fight win streak. I guess this shows that Marlon Vera is pretty good, because Marlon Vera had a bit more of a competitive fight than Pedro Munhoz did. I mean, Aldo outlanded Munhoz 114-75, and Vera 44 to Aldo, 46 to Marlon Vera. Aldo took the back in the 3rd round and won it based on that. But the first 2 rounds of Aldo versus Vera were pretty close. Aldo won them, in my opinion, but shows that Marlon Vera is maybe ready for those top guys as well. They all gave Marlon Vera the 2nd round against Aldo, so I thought he won both of them. But man, great job by Jose Aldo, showing that he's still got 3-round cardio. Just need to see him go 5 rounds. But one thing I will say, 34 years of age, breaking personal bests, personal records, he is breaking in the cage. He beat his significant strike average. I think it was 102, was the highest significant strikes he's ever landed in a fight before. And he's been 5 rounds before in his career. 102 significant strikes. He broke that record to 114 today. He's breaking personal bests at 34 years of age, when people are saying he's done. There is no way Aldo is done. He's got a chance against everyone. If I look at the matchups right now in that bantamweight division, I don't think he can beat Gane, because Jan's got the grappling. I think he beats Aljo. Fuck, I feel bad for Aljo. He's just shit, but he's not a champ. But I think he beats Aljo. Aljo ain't taking him down, and I think Aldo would just completely school Aljo, hurt him to the body, and make Aljo gas out in the later rounds. Who knows? So I'd pick him against Aljamain, who's the champ. He'd lose to Piotr Jan, who's the best bantamweight in the world. He has a chance against Dillashaw, but I think Dillashaw could mix it up and use volume. I think Sandhagen would beat Aldo. I think Rob Font would lose to Aldo, maybe, but I don't know. Font's got a really good jab, and he's got good boxing. But one thing about Font, he doesn't know how to pressure opponents, really. He follows guys around the cage, doesn't really cut off the cage too well. He doesn't throw volume punches and break guys down. He's a bit of a sniper. He sits back, and I think that could play into Aldo's hands massively. And I watched Rob Font have close fights with Ricky Simone and Sergio Pettis. Maybe Marlon Moraes just wasn't that good and didn't have a chin. I know he beat Aldo, but still, controversial decision there in some people's eyes. I think Aldo beats Garbrandt. Moraes, again, in a rematch. Edgar. Munhoz, he just did. I reckon he would beat Dominic Cruz. It might be interesting, but I'd pick him. Aldo's still a guy in this division that you've got to watch out for. But I hate to do this for the Holloway fans out there. He's still the featherweight GOAT, Jose Aldo. But man, Volkanovski's really good. I'm sorry. Aldo Volkanovski, 3-round Aldo. Listen, Holloway got a 5-round Aldo who knew that there was 2 more rounds and started gassing out in the 3rd. Volkanovski went to fucking Brazil to take on Jose Aldo in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 3-round Aldo, and outlanded him 95-29 on significant strikes. I hate to take away from Aldo here, but man, Volkanovski is good. 20-8 in round 1, Volkanovski. 39-12 in round 2 for Volkanovski. And 36-9 in round 3. I'm picking Volko against Ortega. All of Volko's wins look really good in hindsight. And it shows you how good these guys are, man. Volko tamed that Aldo for 3 rounds. And, crazy to see. But Aldo's back in the mix. Good to see it. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'd be so sad if he lost. But, you know, I'm glad he got the job done. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Aldo gets it done.